What's up, guys? Welcome back to a new video here, and it's time. It's finally time to do our 2024 electoral map prediction. And guys, just to be clear, it's not like this is not a science. I don't know for sure, so no one get mad about whether or not it's 100% accurate. I don't know, but I'm going off the latest polling based on some of the early voter registration results and just a gut feeling, and based on prior elections as well. So let's get into it just to start off. Now, I left a bunch of states open that are potentially up for discussion and debate based on how much money the parties are putting in, the Senate candidates. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let's just go to Texas, where, usually a Republican stronghold here, and it's probably going to stay that again, guys. And the reason why I left it undecided, well, while I think it might be closer than we see in a lot of other elections, because of, if you guys look at the polling between Ted Cruz and his opponent, Colin Allred, it's actually really close. I mean, it's within a point or two in a lot of these polls. Now, I think that Cruz will probably end up winning, but it's not at all certain. And it's also, I think this will be closer than people think. But I do have Texas going red, and it's going to be the first win here for the Republicans. Okay. So we have Texas. So now we have the final count at 232 to 189 for the Democrats. Now let's go to Florida. Now, there's a lot of Democrats who are actually pretty optimistic about their chances in Florida. Obama, of course, won it in 2012, and that was the last time the Democrats won it. Now, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think it's realistic that they win Florida because if you guys look at uh, the immigration of Florida, for example, from other states, a lot of it is Republican voters. And honestly, it has become more of a Republican state. There's no question about it. Governor DeSantis won there pretty easily in his last election, and the state's turned red. Now, it'll be interesting to see how a lot of abortion propositions go. So I'm not sure it'll be red as many Republicans think, but uh, although the Harris campaign has some sort of optimism for Florida, I don't think it's realistic. So that's going to be another tick in the Republicans' favor. So now it's pretty close. We have 232 to 219. Let's go to Michigan. Let's go to Michigan. Okay, so guys, and I took some notes here. Now, another thing about these states, these are the true swing states here now. A lot of people seem to think that Trump is just going to outperform the polling again. Now, the reason why they think this is because in 2016 and 2020, there's no question that Trump significantly overperformed the poll. But based on a lot of research I've done, it's a lot of the polling agencies, um, they've adjusted a lot of their signs behind the polls and the way they account for polls. So in a lot of cases now, they overcount Republican support. I look at 2022, for example, guys. I don't know why that's not discussed enough. You had Harry Anton on CNN, for example, talking about this, uh, who's their big data guy, where, guys, in 2022, the polls significantly undercounted Democratic support. If you guys remember, everyone was saying it's going to be a red wave and it's going to be a significant Republican win, but it was quite the opposite. The Democrats, uh, did way better than expected and significantly overperformed the polls. While Trump himself wasn't on the ballot, a lot of his candidates were Trump candidates. So I don't know why people think that Trump's going to overperform again. It's possible. It's certainly not impossible that happens, but I don't think it necessarily means it's true. I think it's important to note. Now, Michigan, and I was very I thought Trump might win Michigan up until a couple of weeks ago because of the Gaza issue, of course, where a lot of Arab voters would not vote for Harris. And I don't know, and maybe that still might be the case. But if you look at a lot of the early voting numbers here, guys, 55 to 45 women, again, far more women voting in this state. And obviously, this election is going to be significantly based on the gender divide, as opposed to many other elections. Way more women are voting for Harris than men, who are going to be skewing heavily for Trump. Now, 55-45 women here, it's a huge advantage for Harris. And guys, and if you look at the polling here, like the recent polling is pretty significant and a huge shift towards Harris near the buzzer here in Michigan. You look at Atlas Intel, which generally skews right, has it at a tie. Marist has Harris up 3 in the latest result, and this might be the most interesting one, guys. Rasmussen, which almost always skews right wing and more towards Trump, has Harris up 1 in Michigan. So we've seen a huge polling bump towards her, and even like Fox News has it as a tie. It's going to be very close, but I think Harris has to go with Michigan. That's Wisconsin. Michigan, I have Harris winning by a point to 3 points, I would say. Maybe more. A point to four. I don't think it's I'd be surprised if Trump won Michigan at this point. I just think everything is trending in her favor there. So that's the first one. I have Harris at 247. Now let's go to Wisconsin. Okay, so we said Michigan had 255 to 45 women voting in the early voting statistics. Now, there's not as much of a gender divide in Wisconsin, just in terms of the census, for example. But again, a lot of the polling also, it's Harris has also had a pretty significant bump. I mean, Emerson, which was done a couple weeks, like 2 weeks ago, had Trump up one, USA Today up one, but again, within a margin of error of 4 points, guys. So this is basically a toss up. Now, a huge outlier poll here has it's a CNN poll from October 28th had Harris up six. I don't think she went by that much. I mean, that would be unbelievable. But that's pretty much an outlier. But a CNN poll has Harris up six. Rasmussen, which we just discussed, has Trump up three, but within a margin of error of three. Maris has Harris up two. Again, I just think that is trending in her favor there. A lot of the polling a couple months ago had Trump up. We've just seen a shift towards Harris here at towards the end, and I think Harris will eventually end up holding Wisconsin. I think probably by a less margin than she'll win Michigan, but I think she will evidently end up holding Wisconsin. So I have the Rust Belt going to Harris here. So we have a 257 to 219. Now let's go to Arizona. Okay. So Arizona is pretty interesting, guys. I mean, in terms of the stats we have now, 1.7 million votes have already been cast. And again, the gender divide here is not as much as a lot of these other states 48% women to 43% men. And so, again, another thing here is interesting. Carrie Lake is running in Arizona. She's generally a pretty unpopular candidate for the most part, running against Gallego, who's going to win that race. Gallego is up pretty significantly, far outperforming Harris in Arizona. Now, and again, Biden won by a very slim margin here in 2020, but I think with immigration being a major issue in Arizona, and this is a must have for Trump. He has to win Arizona, and I'm not confident in it at all, but I think in the end, Trump will barely hold on to Arizona, giving him a big win there. So 257 to 230, and we got 3 states to go. So let's go to Georgia. Let's go to Georgia here. So I have 257 to 230. Georgia's pretty interesting, guys. Now, again, this is another tough one here. We see 56 to 44% of the early voting is women. That is a disaster for Trump, and that needs to change if he has any chance of winning. 3.6 million votes cast, a huge turnout already here. But so again, these numbers have you think Trump's going to win, or excuse me, Harris is going to win. These are definitely beneficial. These early voting numbers for the Harris campaign. But if you take a look at the polling here, guys, pretty much all the polling, while it is very close, it is pretty much a very small Trump lead. Maris has it at a tie. Trafalgar, but again, another right-wing pollster. Trafalgar has Trump up 2. CNN has Trump up 1. Rasmussen has Trump up 5. Atlas has Trump up 2. But again, take into account the margin of error here. But even with that, the polling still has a slight Trump edge in Georgia. I don't think it's impossible at all that she carries Georgia. I think it's totally possible. But I think Trump does hold on by a hair. But I don't know. This is a very tough one, too. I considered giving this one to Harris as well. But I think Trump eventually does hold on to Georgia. Barely. But so now we have 257 to 246. Let's go to North Carolina. So this one's pretty interesting here. So 3.6 million votes cast already, guys. Now, this is pretty. And again, by the way, a lot of the polling here has Trump up a little bit too, similar to a lot of Georgia's polls. 3.6 million votes cast here already. But again, the gender divide is also not as significant. It's relatively close in terms of the percentages of voting. But again, we talked about Ruben Gallego in Arizona. I think Mark Robinson, who's an extremely unpopular candidate, he's going to get blown out in the governor election. I think down ballot it's going to hurt Trump. I really do think it is. And these early voting votes I don't know. It's going to be very difficult for the Trump campaign to overcome this, and I'm going to give it to Harris. I'm going to give North Carolina to Harris, barely, but maybe not as small as people would think. I think she wins by a percentage point or two, and I think she holds on, and that would give her the presidency at 273. So I have Harris winning the presidency by winning North Carolina here. So 273 to 246, and we have a final state of Pennsylvania here. So 19 electoral votes, probably the most popular one, or the most, again, guys, I don't think the winner of Pennsylvania, everyone says the winner of Pennsylvania wins the presidency. Yeah, maybe, but I don't think it necessarily means, there's a lot of other states, guys. Look at North Carolina, 16 electoral votes, Georgia, 16, Arizona, 11. Like, you don't, Pennsylvania is huge, but it doesn't necessarily mean the winner or the loser determines the presidency per se. But we'll talk about Pennsylvania here. Again, pretty interesting. Um, but polling is basically a dead heat. It's absurd, the polling, how close it is in Pennsylvania. Look at Fox News, Trump up one. Insider Advantage, Trump up one. Rasmussen, which again we discuss, usually a very right wing leaning poll, Trump up two. Washington Post, Harris up one. Marist, Harris up two. Atlas Intel, Trump up one. USA Today has it a dead heat. So the Real Clear Politics average has Trump up a half point, completely within the margin of error. Total toss up. Total toss up. But again, I look at the early voting numbers here. 56% of the early voting is women. 56% compared to 43% of men. Again, the way this election is going to swing is going to be heavily divided on gender, and there are just not enough men voting for the Trump campaign here, I don't think. I really just don't see it. And total toss up based on the polling, but I think Harris does evidently hold Pennsylvania. So that is my map, guys. That is the final tally I got here. I have 292 to Democrats and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz compared to 246 with the Republicans and Donald Trump and JD Vance. But again, this is going to be an extremely close race, regardless of who wins. And like, I wouldn't be shocked if Trump win at all. It's totally possible. So I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, but just based on the statistics that I've seen and the early voting numbers, I think this is the most realistic outcome. But again, it's not impossible either way. I have Pennsylvania a likely color there. It's not likely. It's definitely going to be a lean. But we'll see. We'll see. It's certainly not certain, and it's going to be an interesting few days. Who knows when it'll be called? It might be called the night of. It might be a few days. But we'll see. But guys, make sure to like and subscribe if you like this video. We'll come back. We'll have more content coming out this week, and we'll update you on the election going forward. So, yep, I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you guys in a couple days probably. Thanks.